This Twitch ambassador has gotten a lot of heat, and this all kickstarted with a Twitch feature nobody wanted. Reading Knock Knock streamers can now collaborate with other Twitch streamers who are live without any advanced setup or planning. I've already made a video about this. I'm not going to talk too much about the Knock Knock feature itself. My other video focused mainly on that feature. Basically, it's a feature to where if you click on it, you can go and join somebody's stream and get brought up on their Twitch stream. As you can see, most people in the comments don't like it. Lily says, Knock Knock, who's there? Unwanted feature. For real though, please let us opt out of these. May I let you know, you can't actually officially opt out. There is no disable button. So then we have the Twitch ambassador that enters the scene, Evil Toaster, who writes, now when people ask me, quote, what does being a Twitch ambassador mean, end quote, I can say, I told them to make this feature and they actually heckin' did it. I can't wait to give it a try. They follow up with, muted this a while ago because I'm not subjecting myself to y'all's brain rot, but if it wasn't obviously clear, me telling Twitch, quote, please add better features for collabing and making collab organization and communication easier is not the same as me deciding how exactly that is executed. And the amount of people saying, no one asked for this, bro, none of y'all asked for anything. You actually need to grow on Twitch because you have no idea what you're doing. Collab content is proven to be extremely effective, but you refuse to engage in it because you're terrified of people. A lot of people were not happy with Evil Toaster for all of this. Captain Hannah adds, nah, you're trolling. Ribbon adds, I honestly don't see the benefit of this. It seems like a lot of people will harass others. But we have other people with more of a middle ground thought process. Ugu Bear adds, respectfully, I don't think the community backlash to this is unwarranted. The communication of how this was delivered was lacking. Collab content works for you, and it's not to say it doesn't work for others, but not all of us want to be subjected to it without warning. That is a much nicer way to word it. But then an expose came out about Evil Toaster themselves. This was made by Twitter user CernaVT. We're tired of Evil Toaster's behind-the-scenes behavior going unchecked and allowing them to mistreat women while still benefiting from his position as a Twitch ambassador / status in the VTuber community. So this doc starts with the many stories of those manipulated, hurt, and cornered by Evil Toaster, his constant overbearing and unwanted intimate behavior towards others, his forceful entry past boundaries, and more. There's a disclaimer where OP says that this is not made to incite harassment or harm anybody, but to highlight Evil Toaster's repeated bad behavior and to bring awareness to it so that there is public documentation. OP writes that while most people in this document are women or femme presenting, there are men and masculine presenting people that have also been affected that are not in this document. OP also wants to highlight the power dynamic and imbalance between Toaster and the woman they interact with. Evil Toaster is connected to a lot of public figures with numbers backing them, and these public figures are incredibly respected within the community. People rarely speak out about how Toaster acts behind the scenes because they don't want to burn bridges with people associated with him. And when people speak out, Evil Toaster purposely ignores all drama to not call attention to it. Point number one, the Twitch ambassador situation. Evil Toaster is currently under scrutiny for disagreeing with people for the knock, which again, we just looked at. Point number two, my personal experience. This is again written in the perspective of CernaVT. Writing, I'm including my personal experience because I want people to know I am not impartial when it comes to Evil Toaster. The Twitch ambassador situation is a completely separate incident, and I would have commented on anybody's demeaning words towards a community they're meant to represent. So they add, regarding intimacy and boundaries, Evil Toaster and OP became fast friends about 2 years ago. Sienna thought Toaster was an amazing person, but looking back, they were under some manipulation, allegedly. One of the first things Toaster will tell this to anybody is that he craves affection, mainly from women. Here are some screenshots of proof with a quote from Evil Toaster writing, every convention is another reminder that I'm not one of the girlies and I'm never gonna get the kind of treatment and affection they give each other, even though I try to connect with them. I've gotten better at dealing with that fact over time, but it still hurts to think about. And there is a DM from Evil Toaster writing, quote, and I'm not escaping the man class position anytime soon, so it's still important that I be better for that. But no matter what, I'm just gonna notice the small kind of ways people I want to be closer to close me off because of how I'm perceived by them or society, which is just gonna make me think more about how things would be different otherwise. Who I would be closer to, who would let me tell them more of my feelings, who would let me touch them. There's so many instances of this just seeing in front of me through my whole life where people I'm genuinely good friends with will stop me at a point where they let women they know less go past. He also expressed a sentiment to me many times in the beginning of our friendship, as you can see above. He desperately wanted intimacy with women who he framed as casually saying I love you, calling people wife, and generally wholesome flirting. This turns out to not be true, which you can read in the entirety of this doc. In the screenshot above, he says, who would let me touch them? I also want to point out that Toaster understands they're seen as a man and have, as they call it, a man class position. He likes to say he's aware of this, but then continues to pressure women despite knowing he's not one of the girlies. And frankly, it isn't because of his gender or his perceived gender, but because of how he constantly pushes boundaries and makes people, mostly women, uncomfortable. Serena is a flirty person, and they stated that they're fine with casual flirting, but if anything goes beyond what their boyfriend would be comfortable with, they would put a stop to it. And that was discussed in these DMs between Serena and Evil Toaster, where Evil Toaster writes, if we get too close and you wanted more, we both have to deny ourselves something we want to explore. Serena says, above the same thing I just told you about boundaries. Evil Toaster says, I'm just thinking it would be a shame if it came to a point where we had to hold ourselves back is all. So far, I don't feel like I've had to hold back anything, which has been incredibly great and refreshing feeling for a new friend, so I value that a lot. I value you a lot for that. It's just comfortable. Serena is again stating boundaries, saying, I hope you can still value me despite the potential need to deny yourself something and condition yourself. And Evil Toaster says, but the connection beyond that is so far very unique to me, so it's hard to not want to explore, which is why I ask things like that. So clearly, Serena is drawing boundaries and stating, yep, this is where I'm going to draw the line. Serena adds, later on, I expressed to how men in the past have left me as a friend because they know they won't get anything more out of me. But then he says, and this is a DM written by Evil Toaster, while again, I'm fine with not going past any boundary to decide for how close we should be, I do also hope that you don't end up in a situation where you want to be closer, but either feel like you can't or are forced not to. I'm not sure how likely that would be or how likely we'd even get to that level in the first place, but I just wouldn't want you to be in a situation where you felt like you had to hold back. Even I still feel like I have to, but obviously I'm not holding back as much as I have in the past with others, thank God. This is weird. This DM is weird. Seems like Toaster is trying to slightly coax Serena out of their boundaries. I hope you don't end up in a situation where you want to be closer. He didn't say that, but it's how I read this as. But either feel like you can't or are forced not to. If somebody says, I'm not comfortable with going past what my boyfriend's okay with, but Evil Toaster continues, I just want you to have what you want, whatever that is or will be. And I just fear from you've talked about it that there's a possible outcome where you'd be told to distance yourself from me and neither of us may want it. I wouldn't leave you if that happened, of course, but it would be sad. This is not looking good already. This is smelling like stuff my toxic ex would say. While he assures me it's fine, he flips it onto me again and says it would be sad if I had to set more boundaries. But of course, this is for my sake and not his. Now, next section, talking about others. Sienna writes that pushing boundaries is typical of Toaster and that further into their friendship, they brought up how uncomfortable they were with how he talked about women. And some names are omitted. Sienna presents that to Toaster. Evil Toaster is like, why? What? Cece is like, I didn't like how you spoke about Milkie once. She felt emotional/attached towards you. Then you talked about Kisa and made a comment about her incapability to say no to other people, which came off as bitter. Toaster is like, why did it come off as bitter? And Cece's like, because you said she was too popular for you to hang out. So it was hard to make time with her. So here's some proof of DMs. This is a DM between Cece and Evil Toaster where Cece says, I think you're looking for romantic relationships rather than platonic ones. Or maybe you're feeling the need for close platonic relationships like a best friend. Toaster says, I hardly even have a baseline level platonic friendship save a few people. And all those people have massively less time for me than I have for them. I don't think there's a way to help. And I've already called my therapist because Cece suggested that. Cece says, what did they say? Toaster says, 28th probably next week. I might be able to hang out with Kisa tomorrow afternoon, assuming nobody snatches her up for anything. And Cece says, are you talking about me specifically? It was unfortunate I didn't even get to play Apex with her yesterday. Toaster says, well, funny coincidence since that happened like 3 times. No, actually. Trying to schedule anything with her is hard because she's so popular. And I don't think she's the type to say no, which is concerning in itself. This again reads a little bit weird to me because feels to me like Toaster has a weird possessiveness kind of over which they would have no reason to have. I could obviously understand if my boyfriend was upset that he couldn't snag my free time because he's my boyfriend. But if you're just a friend, I have friends that are popular and they're always booked and busy, and I know that. And I'm cool. Whenever you're free, I would love to see you. But I am not mad that they want to hang out with other people. If we give benefit of doubt to Toaster, maybe there's somebody who is chronically online and desperately lonely and craves somebody to fill the deep void in their chest, and then they're being weird about doing it. Maybe it is malicious. Maybe they're innately trying to fill the gaping hole that they have inside. But it's weird. It's weird. Don't push people's boundaries, man. Sienna writes, as for a Milkie experience, Toaster talked to me about her and him becoming intimate, although the way he had portrayed their intimacy differed greatly from what was actually occurring. Toaster had mentioned having the possibility of a relationship with Milkie and becoming more intimate. However, Milkie had only ever expressed friendship and the platonic intimacy that comes from that. Any emotional attachment was strictly platonic, and all mentions of a relationship were simply those of friendship. She had never encouraged or communicated to Toaster that it would be anything more than a friendship. The way he portrayed his dynamic with Milkie was grossly misrepresented and instead was expressed in a very different light than how it actually was. So in this conversation between Toaster and Cece, Toaster says, I would have played today, but I was showering with Milkie. Cece is confused, and Toaster said, we showered at the same time while on call and talked in shower. And then Cece is like, I'm praying for you. And Toaster says, yeah, she admits she's attached to me and is kind of upset about the fact because she doesn't like being vulnerable, but I don't mind it right now. I'm just curious, how close is Toaster with Cece? I'm not saying this as Cece's at fault, you know what I mean? But this is a lot of oversharing to somebody. Like, these are things I would only tell my best friend. But from the way everything is written, Cece doesn't seem to regard Toaster as a best friend. That's the way I look at things anyways. But I am a very private person and I don't like to share personal details with people. So Serena writes, between what he said about Milkie and Kisa, both people he was romantically interested in, I started to feel weird about it and confronted him. Serena says the coded writing here is him copy and pasting what I've said to him and him responding. Replying to Serena writing, to me it reads as something that didn't really fit my perception of you. And Toaster says, I get that. Serena writes, I felt that when you were saying something that you had no intention behind, it came off to me as if there was more under those words because in my past, a lot of people have had those secondary meanings. And I'm not someone who usually judges anyone at all for more surface level behaviors because they just don't come up on my radar. And I've never understood why people are judgmental over weird, minute things like that. I understand that and I feel the same really. I never really see people's non-harmful behaviors as a problem or an inconvenience. It's just part of who they are. They come up on my radar not as something to judge them for or distance myself from them over, but just as part of knowing them and adding to the pile of things I notice about them. Serena writes, so for you, my friend Toaster, to seemingly suddenly make those comments, I felt very weird. And I had to think it was all in the frame of reference to you branching out to Milkie in a more intimate way. And that's why I had that relationship lens on it, because I felt like you were searching out. Toaster adds, it makes sense why you're worried about me at that time in regards to Milkie. I was fully aware going into the connection with Milkie that there were circumstances for both of our lives that would have some influence over how we approached each other. And I took the initiative to make that very open and clear from both our ends to ensure nothing too silly would happen. And I think her and I are in a healthy position now because of that. I did go into it thinking there was a possible outcome of her and I progressing to a relationship status, but didn't consider it a high likelihood or something that I was going to pursue at all costs. It was just that, the thought that it was possible and being aware of it. And being aware of it in combination with knowing how her and I were approaching each other, given our circumstances, helped ensuring that our conversations were healthier and helped me know what to communicate. Maybe this is the skeptic in me, right? And I'm speaking from my personal experience because I have had that happen too many times. I think in life, there's nothing wrong with having the potential hopes that you could have a relationship with somebody if they're giving you the green light and the signs that that might happen. I have experienced this in my life, and I'm sure if you're a woman or femme presenting, even if you're not a woman, you might have had this experience, right? But mainly most women probably have had this experience where you will have a strictly platonic friendship with a man or somebody you're interested in, right? I'm speaking from a heterosexual perspective because I am straight, but you will have a platonic friendship and then they will get a sudden inkling that you're going to have a relationship, that they're going to date you and they're like, oh my gosh, she's interested in me, but it's just platonic. There was no signs whatsoever that anything romantic happened. Again, I can't see the DMs between Toaster and Milkie. I have no idea how the relationship happened, how their conversations happened, but I have had it in my life where there were men in my life and it was strictly platonic and they were reading way too much into it that nothing beyond those regards. They were like, yeah, she's responding to my text so that she must be into me. Yeah, I'm replying to you just as I'm replying to my other friends. Like nothing more is here, but they would read more into it than there was. That would be the cynical way to look at this situation happening. Again, I don't know the full context. I am not Milkie and we do not see the conversation between the two, but I'm just saying this behavior is reminding me of behavior that has happened to me from men in my life. So here, Sienna writes, even here, it's clear that Toaster has intentions when getting close to women. He says there was a possible outcome of her and I progressing to a relationship status. A lot of time, Toaster will go back and forth between never expecting anything from women and a few moments later will admit that he does have expectations. And Sienna writes that they just felt like Toaster was using Milkie because he didn't mind Milkie being attached to him and not reciprocating feelings. So there's another DM between Serena and Toaster where Serena writes, one thing that I think sparked a reaction in me was you saying trouble saying no to anybody about Kisa. Because for me, anybody saying that about a woman is like, makes me take a step back because I feel like that's a very womanly struggle. And for somebody to comment on it, it felt very personal. I know you didn't mean it like that, but it definitely gripped at something in me where I was like, whoa, just felt charged. But I think that's my own like anger towards the socialization that leads women to placidity. And for someone who has a societal presence of a man commenting on it and what came off as a frustrated tone, I definitely felt my chest puff out and I got defensive. I think the thing is, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. He acknowledges she has trouble saying no. You are somebody with a man perspective in the world, you know, where you are a man or you are masculine presenting and you wield the power that men wield in this world, that there is a woman who has trouble saying no that can lead you to push boundaries knowingly. And that is why to me, that is scary. Or maybe not scary, but a beige flag waving around. Toaster writes, I understand that this is a struggle for women, and given Kisa's history, it's likely something she deals with very often. When I commented on it and just observed, it was from a point of empathy. However, in the context with you, I brought it up as a point that makes it difficult to find more time with her and how that frustrated me. It didn't frustrate me as something personal from her against me, but more so because it was adding on to a pile of connections I have with people where their life circumstances that neither of us have control over has kept us up. That wording is weird too. Like, this statement of life circumstances has kept us apart rubs me the wrong way personally, because it seems like time and time again, Toaster keeps wanting more from these relationships than the other party is willing to give. Serena writes that they just felt really uncomfortable with Toaster psychoanalyzing people without them consenting, desiring it, and people that they aren't even really close with. So now we have Kisa's experience. So Toaster started talking to Kisa more after finding out Kisa left the relationship. They thought it was a little bit weird, but gave benefit of doubt, and that they bonded with Toaster over their shared experiences with past partners. Kisa writes that they have never had many friends because their ex would get upset with them if they did, so their social anxiety over the 8 years got worse, and because of it, they tend to worry that everybody hates me or find them boring. And they get really shy and nervous about hangouts and tend to kind of like brush them off. So Toaster wanted to hang out with Kisa to play games. Kisa was uncomfortable but kept making excuses because they felt guilty to straight up say no. Then one day, Toaster got fed up with Kisa not playing with him, where he sent a long message about how he's trusting me to reach out to him and that he's using the little amount of energy that he has left to keep up with me and chat and plan things to do. And Kisa did not like the long message because it felt exactly like what their narcissistic ex would say. Kisa then explained how that was not okay and he apologized, but Kisa felt like it didn't feel genuine. And from then on, they did not like talking to Toaster anymore. Kisa felt like the entire time Toaster wanted more out of the friendship, and the comments that he would leave on their Twitter selfies and stuff made them uncomfortable. So here are screenshots of Toaster showing interest. DMs between Toaster and Cece, where Toaster is like, did you see the selfie she just posted? And Cece said, yup. And Toaster says, cried, screamed. More DMs, Toaster says, tell me more fun facts about you. The dress is so pretty. So in these DMs, Toaster is saying that he's willing to cut his stream shorter just to spend time with Kisa, and Kisa says no. And here are screenshots of Toaster pushing boundaries with Kisa. Oh my god. Okay, I was trying to give benefit of doubt, but the more I read this, dude, homie needs to take a hint. Can't you tell that Kisa doesn't want to talk to you or hang out with you? Like, oh my god, I can read this from a mile away. Toaster's like, I ended early. Kisa said, don't do that. And then Kisa says, oh, did you want to play Valorant? If not, that's okay. You can relax too. Here, she's trying to get an out. Toaster's like, let me hear back from Zen. She wants to play Apex, blah, 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 blah. Kisa says, I unfortunately don't have Apex on my little bro's PC and the internet's slow, but you and Zen can play. And then Toaster's like, logging on to Valorant. Toaster's like, I checked your mutual friends to see who I can invite for collabs later, and it's just CC. Guess I'll plan for that sometime in the future. Kisa says, yeah, I don't have too many Twitter peeps on Discord. Toaster's asking to game, and Kisa is saying they're gonna relax because they want to relax before stream. Toaster is saying, I'm gonna sleep, we hang out later. And Kisa says, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be streaming in the afternoon. And then Toaster's like, when you say afternoon, what time do you mean? And then Kisa's like, at 7 p.m. EST. And then before that, I'll be exercising, getting work done. And then the next day, dude, actually, no, not even. This is March 22nd, 2023. Then 9 hours later. Okay, so now we're on the 23rd at 1:55 a.m. Are you gaming capable tonight? And then Kisa says they're playing with a friend. And then Toaster's like, are you doing anything tomorrow afternoon? He says, when I say afternoon, I mean like from 12 to 6 p.m. I cannot give benefit of doubt anymore. My patience is being worn thin. This is why I don't have that many friends. Okay, I'm not saying that. I feel like I have a lot of mutuals, a lot of friends, whatever. I have a zero tolerance for behavior like this. Homie, Kisa keeps blowing you off because she doesn't want to talk to you or hang out with you. Why? Stop asking. I literally want to grip him by his shoulders and shake him and be like, stop. I'm gonna give you guys a social lesson, a lesson on socialization. There's two sides, right? Always give people the benefit of doubt. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'm busy, whatever, but they genuinely are busy, but they genuinely still want to hang out with you. I am that type of person, right? But when somebody wants to hang out with you, it is mutually enthusiastic, okay? Do you guys know the things of consent? Mutual consent, enthusiastic consent. Yeah, needs to be enthusiastic, okay? When somebody genuinely wants to hang out with you, when you're like, hey, are you free tonight to play games? I'm sorry, I'm busy tonight. I really want to play with you. Are you free tomorrow? That other person would make the same amount of effort or close to the same amount of effort to try to hang out with you. It will be reciprocal. They won't just be like, oh, sorry, I'm busy, whatever. They'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm busy. Are you free tomorrow? Or they maybe a day or two later sure will hit you up. You know, like one of my friends hit me up for a league. I'm busy because I'm filming, I'm streaming. So I'm like, oh, sorry, I can't play today. Next time though. And then maybe like a day or two later, I will hit him up and be like, yo, do you want to play league tonight? Like I am mutually enthusiastic about hanging out with him and playing games with him. Clearly in these messages, Kisa has clearly over and over and over and over and over again had no enthusiasm in hanging out with you. Take the hint, take the L, take the no, and go do whatever frogs do. Oh boy. So Kisa writes, I'll mostly be working on stuff and hang out with some friends later in the day. I have to collab. I feel so bad like for Kisa too, because they keep giving excuses. Like I feel so sorry for Kisa because they feel like they're backed into a corner and that they feel like because of their social anxiety, they can't say no. So instead they give excuses because they're like, okay, well, I'm trying to find like a reasonable way to say it so it doesn't seem bad. And Toaster is just not taking a fucking hint. When's their next availability? Kisa's like, I'm not sure because I want to stream again this week, but I haven't planned it out. So eventually Kisa tries to stop him from initiating hangouts. So then Toaster's like, I mean, it doesn't have to be this week. And Kisa says, yeah, but I get super nervous planning things. And then Toaster says, I don't want to stress you out. What if I'm the one who plans it? Does it make it easier? And then Kisa says, I feel like it would be the least stressful if I just approached you when I'm able to play. And then Toaster's like, will you do that? And then Toaster slams Kisa with this wall of text. Toaster writes, okay, I'm letting you know I'm putting a lot of trust in you for that, not to make it more stressful. Zoomed in smiley emoji. But as I wrote about on Twitter yesterday, I'm dealing with increasingly smaller ratio of people I know to people who actually reach out to me and ask me to do things and connect, which means I just have limited energy remaining to do all the work of scheduling and organizing and keep up with everybody because frankly, not many people message me on any given day. I wonder why. I wonder why not many people reach out to you on any given day, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys who also watch me maybe don't have that many people hitting you up. For y'all, it's probably not your problem, right? Maybe other people are busy. They have their lives to live as well. People don't hit me up on a daily basis because people are there. My friends are busy. They have their lives to live. They have jobs. Okay. Toaster's case, people aren't hitting you up probably because you are making everybody in your life uncomfortable with how you constantly push boundaries. Sometimes you need to ask yourself if you are the problem. I'm saying most of y'all, I'm pretty sure y'all are fine. And here's the thing. Why can't he just take no for an answer? A no is a no, bro. If somebody doesn't want to be friends with you, that's fine. A friendship on them when they don't want one. Mind your own business. Somewhere and find somebody else that actually wants to be friends with you. Why are you so desperate to be friends and hang out with somebody, Kisa, who clearly doesn't want to hang out with you? That's fine. Just find somebody else, you know? There's plenty of fish in the sea. But he insists on like over and over and over again pushing Kisa. This is so uncomfortable to read. So anyways, I digress. Toaster continues, which also is big because you're one of the people I'm spending the energy for right now to keep up with you and chat and find time to do things. So frankly, if you just want to come to me the moment you have time, that'd actually be better for both of us. It's surprising to me because nobody really does that for me. So I'm both excited for that, but also worried if that'll actually happen. But you don't seem like one to just not do a thing they'd say they do. So yeah, keep me updated. And it seems like we're both staying up to 6 a.m. lately, so don't be afraid to poke me this late either. This guy is going to be my 13th reason. Swear to God. Okay, because again, a lot of people who watch this video might be like, oh my God, he's not doing anything explicitly bad, right? He's not like out here verbally harassing, but things like this degrade your conscience over time. He's like a stupid little pebble in your shoe. You know, you would say, obviously, if somebody throws a rock at you, it's gonna suck and it's gonna hurt. But that stupid little pebble in your shoe is honestly almost as annoying too, because with every step you take, every movement you make, that stupid pebble jabs your foot and it's just there. That's what evil Toaster's like. He's just like a pebble in your shoe. It's just always there. You want to get him out, but maybe you're like in public, so it's not really an appropriate time for you to take your shoes off and be like, and I don't like how he wrote, I'm both excited for that, but also worried that it will actually happen. But you don't seem like the one to just not do a thing they'd say they do. So keep me updated. This reads so guilt trippy to me because I think Evil Toaster recognizes that Kisa maybe is a little bit more anxious, right? So he's just guilt tripping her to try to hang out with him. Find more friends, or not more, because clearly Kisa doesn't want a relationship with you. But please find somebody else that genuinely wants to be friends with you and spend your effort on them. Psychoanalyzing others without their consent. This ties into overstepping boundaries. Toaster has an affinity for judging others and diagnosing them with neurodivergent disorders like ADHD and autism without their consent. So Toaster is talking about VOD reviewing somebody and he writes, I don't know how well it would go though. She's not a very inquisitive person, I am sensing. Cece is like, you might be surprised. And Toaster says, I already helped her fix her OBS and she asks 0 questions. Every time I checked to make sure she understood because she would say, okay. She was like, no, I don't understand. I think most people are like that, but I noticed because when people actually seek out understanding, it says a lot about them. And Sierra writes, this was about a good friend of mine. While I understand Toaster didn't mean this with ill intent, it rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like how he was insinuating that people who do ask questions and are curious are better than those who don't. So Toaster writes about somebody else. She's at off-grid, but she didn't tell me she was going. She didn't really tell anybody except a couple of friends, and she wasn't invited. invited by anybody. There's a lot of reasons why, but I know she just doesn't really want to admit that she doesn't want her partner to feel insecure. He's already said he's felt insecure about me. I wonder why, bro. Probably because you're pushing boundaries. And she said in the past she's compromising and keeping things to herself for his sake, and it makes me so sad. But I'm just not really the person that can call that out. She's slowly unlearning people pleasing, but I fear she will let herself go her whole life being content with compromising herself. Dude, I don't know what Delulu pill Toaster is on. What Delulu juice told me did you drink to make you think like this? I just love, I'm saying this sarcastically, how Toaster is reading so much into every situation and relationship he has with everybody. How does he think that every relationship he has is more than it actually is? I'm very confused. Sienna writes, again, he's talking about a woman in a relationship with a friend of mine and is upset she didn't tell him she was going to off-kai. When I was friends with Toaster, one of the first things he talked to me about was neurodivergency and autism. I want to point out that I was new to VTubing and I was familiar with autism through my younger sister who was diagnosed. My father also suspected he is on the spectrum. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, neurodivergency, a lot of it is genetic. I'm diagnosed with ADHD and my father is not diagnosed, but boy, oh boy, we have a lot of similarities. I mean, I wonder where I got it from. So Sienna writes that they were excited to talk to somebody who seemed to know a lot about it. As we talked more, he started to file things I said or did into his folder of autistic tendencies, and later he introduced me to online tests to see if I was autistic. That is weird. So here, Cece writes, do you think I did well being a human and talking to other humans? Toaster says, yeah, you did. Do you often examine your ability to appear and interact as a normal human? And then Toaster is like, Sienna, do you have ADHD? And then anyways, if you want to take some recommended tests, start here, embrace-autism.com/autism tests. So Sienna writes that they initially were grateful because Toaster was introducing them to a side of themselves they haven't acknowledged or explored, were naive about the situation. They later realized that Toaster bringing up potential neurodivergency without consent and publicly is dangerous and disrespectful, and Sienna is deeply regretful and apologized for their ignorance. I don't think Sienna is at fault at all. I mean, I feel like in situations like these, if this is somebody you view as a friend, it's easy to think, oh, they're being really helpful, you know, and think they have your best interest at heart. For the hot people test, is he referring to the autism test as hot people test? I'm only saying that because that's the only test that that we have DMs of him linking here. But he writes, by the way, redacted is totally hot people radar off the charts, my favorite tell, and a DM of him to them saying you want to take the hot people test. Also, I totally get what you mean by like confused about why she scored low on the hot people test, but I think I understand why. There's no way she's neurotypical. Oh, so that's about Milkie, who has never talked to Toaster before about autism or ADHD. So Sienna writes, the only reason they mentioned it to Toaster was the fact that they took the autism test together with Milkie and they just wanted to relate, but now they see that they were influenced by Toaster's obsession with autism and neurodivergency, and that they do not need to relate to people through sharing an autism diagnosis the way he needs and wants to. And they thought it was weird as to why Evil Toaster kept bringing up, trying to push his thoughts on autism and ADHD onto everybody he met. More screenshots of Toaster suspecting somebody has autism, and Toaster writing, I have great news for you. Almost all the other VTubers are autistic too. And that was not to Sienna, but with somebody else. And the person Toaster sent that to is not autistic. So here's a long screenshot between Toaster and somebody by the name of Kaisa. Toaster's writing about a girl named Nia, stating I don't know how much of it is she doesn't want others to think we are a thing, and how much of it she doesn't want me to think we're a thing. There's a very good likelihood she isn't even thinking about this at all because her head is empty. Meanwhile, my neurons are constantly firing. Toaster adds, I constantly tell her and remind her to let me know if there's any kind of discomfort coming from me, and she says I'm 100% fine, but from watching her past experiences with other people, I'm not sure she would hold herself to that, etc. Some random viewer constantly harassing her in chat and DMs acting like her boyfriend, and she kind of just lets him exist and responds to him nicely even though he was killing the vibes. It took my mod team telling her it was making chat uncomfortable for her to do something. Toaster adds, I still don't get how for everybody else Nia's the super cheerful, happy, and supportive and shows loves and kisses to everyone, and then I'm around and she's just like not remotely like that. And Toaster feels like she holds back that kind of sentiment intentionally with him, but he doesn't know how or why. And then he adds, because she's literally the most autistic person I've met, my god, which of course is beautiful to me, but I feel like I'll only ever get through if I just force her to pay attention and hold her eyeballs open and speak directly to her face while speaking very, very literally. Ew. Why are you trying to get through to people that don't want you to get through to them? Dude, what is with people like Toaster and forcing themselves into people and situations that do not want them? I don't get it. I truly don't. Do you think the world owes you a golden spoon? Do you think the world owes you everything? Do you think everybody owes you stuff? It feels like he feels like Nia owes him attention, hugs, kisses, validation, and a certain level of treatment that he wants. Apart from autism ADHD, Toaster also reveals personal information to people that most likely should not be shared. While the person he talks about is okay with this behavior, I feel compelled to talk about it vaguely out of respect for anonymity and privacy because the information is incredibly personal, and if he's talking about this with people he barely knows, I can only imagine what personal information he'll share about others or in the future. So, Anon's experience, pushing boundaries. This individual wants to stay anonymous, please respect that. Evil Toaster has collabed with this person a handful of times, but always wanted to hang out with them alone. They were uncomfortable about this because Toaster was already pushing boundaries, wanting them to open up to him, as well as making intimate comments towards them. So in these DMs, Toaster says, redacted, can you please tell me why this is so difficult? It has never been an issue to get you into a collab or for you to show up to a collab or anything in general, and those are not easy things for most people. I just want to talk to you and call and hang out and do literally anything with no expectation so we can be closer friends, and I've been trying for months and it feels like you are unresponsible in the barrier. Redacted says, just talking about my issues has never been easy for me at all. It's a lot to unpack, and when I start feeling better, I never want to talk about it. It's an avoidance system. I'm just an awkward person. Toaster says, we don't even have to talk about it. First, I just want to spend time with you. Over time, it'll become easier. I'm not trying to tell you that I'm hot shit or anything, but from an outside perspective, I'm picking up the vibe that your tendency to spread yourself thin for everybody, your feelings of pressure to not leave anyone out, to respond to everyone, to say hi to everyone, etc., leaves you in a situation where the people in your life are actively trying to help you thrive, cough, cough, me, are not getting enough time with you for you to actually feel like you're cared about. I am losing my mind. This is insane stuff to write to people. Maybe I have it wrong, but it's simply a pattern I see often, and I'm always kind of like, leave it at that, and well, okay, I gotta stop here, but I don't want to do that to you, so I'm simply trying this new strategy of telling you this instead, because the alternative is this permanent roadblock. Once again, Evil Toaster is psychoanalyzing and trying to insert himself into people that don't want him. What is with Evil Toaster and just glorifying his relationship with other people and viewing their relationship as much more intimate than it actually is? From what OP writes, it doesn't sound like OP wants to get closer with him, but he's like, you're in a situation where people in your life who actively want to help you and me are not getting enough time with you to make you feel like you're cared about. Like, he has this weird savior complex, and Evil Toaster is just spamming them with bongo cats, like one a day bongo cat spam, and then says, okay, redacted, you're just gonna have to straight up tell me what you want from me because I don't get it. Redacted says, I explained to you that I was gonna be gone Thursday and Friday. I'm gonna be real. I don't know why you're under the impression I want something from you. I think I've been clear in saying that I struggle with opening up and talking about deeper issues. Continuing to press on these matters definitely doesn't help. And Toaster adds, I don't want to press you to a point where it's uncomfortable, but I haven't felt certain on where it's uncomfortable for you and where you need the repeated attention to know I'm genuinely interested in talking to you and reassuring you aren't worrying about me. He's not speaking the same language as Redacted. Redacted is saying, hey, I do not want to talk to you. I don't want to open up to you. And Toaster is like, but I'm special and you can open up to me, and not the same convo, bro. Redacted doesn't want to talk to you. So why do you have this weird savior complex? Toaster adds, I'm not under the impression you want something from me. That's not what I meant. But I do want you to know that you want me to do for you because on one hand, you've expressed you're lonely and that you want to spend time with me. Two feelings I reciprocate. However, it's been a struggle to get any time to try to connect with you outside of collabs where there are more people involved. Duh, because the collabs are public. You've admitted you're a people pleaser, and I really hope you don't feel like you have to act that way for me because it makes it difficult to know if you're telling me things like how you want to spend time together because you're trying to be kind, as opposed to saying what you might actually feel and that you're not super invested in that. He says, again, I'm truly not trying to do something that makes you uncomfortable. I just want to know what you want me to do for you. Redacted wants you to fuck off, bro. I want to help you and I'm asking for directions. As far as these screenshots, has never asked you for help. I can't with these savior people with savior complexes swooping in being like, I'm here to help save you. Anon never asked for help as far as these screenshots have shown. And Evil Toaster writes, so I guess just tell me how much help you want, or if you don't know, tell me if you're okay with me trying to find out. Like I said, I won't pressure you to do something you flat out tell me you don't want to do, but things that are difficult to do that you still want are things I want to help you have. There's too many, not words, but like roundabout words in here that's making it hard for me to like process what he's saying. I just don't want to end up becoming distant and going back to not talking for a year. Anon wants you to not talk to them for a year. Anon adds, I want to take the moment to point out that Toaster says, quotes, not to say I'm hot shit, end quote, and then says that he is offering something nobody else in her life, as he assumes. Oh, sorry, Sienna is writing this, which is incredibly disrespectful and harmful because if this person was susceptible to manipulation, this would make them want to let Toaster in, even though they do have a support group outside of them. And Sienna adds that this behavior that Toaster is showing is behavior he has shown Kisa, as seen above. Unrequited interest. Redacted says, I'm sorry to hear that. There's nothing worse than when you're not really sure where you stand in a relationship and things go unresolved. It's nice to finally get that closure, but it doesn't take away from all the hurt you're going to feel. Next year, I promise to give you so many hugs at a convention. Toaster says, I would love to hug and cuddle you at conventions though. Redacted says, not this year. Unfortunately, I can't afford TwitchCon and I want to get back to going to the gym. Toaster Toaster says, I was looking forward to meeting you this year. I will look forward to it next year. Would love to cuddle and tell you how pretty you are. If Toaster's argument of wanting relationship that women have, woman to woman friendships, if they want that intimacy, which I recognize from man to man friendship, right? Heterosexual men friendships are different than women friendships, like heterosexual women, right? I'm guessing that was a context he said in the beginning of this doc when he says, I can't be one of the girls. Sorry, but the girlies don't say, I look forward to cuddling and telling you how pretty you are at TwitchCon. I do not say that to my girlfriends. I do not say that to the girls in my lives, bro. I love women. I love telling women they're pretty, but I don't say it like this. The way it's said is what is the issue here, in my opinion. I would say, oh my God, I'm so excited to go see you at TwitchCon. Like, of course, when I see them, I'm like, oh my God, girl, you're so pretty. I love your hair, like, whatever, you know, because women are beautiful. Say, I'm so excited to cuddle you and tell you how pretty you are. It's the way you write it, bro. That's why it comes out weird. So Sienna adds the blue crossout is Toaster telling a non about somebody's personal information, including their relationship, family situation, and more. And it gets worse when you realize that this person brings up hugging him at a con, which is totally normal. And the first thing Toaster does is escalate this to cuddling. Anon ignores it, so Toaster brings it up again and escalated to telling them how pretty they are. Ugh. So here is Milkie's experience. So Milkie says how it started. Evil Toaster in their call often be referred to as Frog or Fork. They started when Milkie was a small streamer, brand new, and they were streaming Apex. They didn't have any idea on how to play games, especially mouse and keyboard, and Evil Toaster offered to help. Milkie chalked up their intricacies to them just being quirky, and that maybe his issues were just due to his peculiar way of communicating, and that Milkie thought he had pure intentions. Expectations. In the beginning, Frog had told me that I was an unusual existence to him. He mentioned it was unusual for him to meet somebody who was so nice and affectionate to him without needing things in return. And on their second convo, he said that he was overly analytical about them from the beginning. Toaster writes, I'm gonna go on a limb and say you're a person who would appreciate honesty and being upfront, especially since you kind of prompted me to talk about things in our first actual convo, knowing full well there's a can of worms behind the answer to the how are you. So I'm taking it as you're somebody who's very interested in people and value connection and communication and overall being. Does that sound accurate? And he apparently informed Milkie over call in various ways that he's emotionally distant, would treat Milkie differently than other friends, and that he's going through traumas and he is learning how to connect with people. So he basically wrote all of that here in this DM, and he reiterates that he was unable to treat Milkie like he treats others. And Milkie says, I'll be here for you no matter what. And Evil Toaster says, I'm gonna appreciate that, and I'm planning to think you deserve better than even me. Like, I'm a pretty pog friend, but I think you deserve better. And he would constantly bring up how he was dealing with various things, that the platonic affection, comfort, and kindness I showed him was desired and appreciated. However, regardless of the joys I brought him, he would still treat me worse than a standard person. Here is a big trauma dump about his personal traumas and stuff like that, writing that he's been dealing with some long-standing trauma from previous relationships and family and a new traumatic events. He listed traumas that were then censored, stating that it makes it difficult for him to connect with people, and stating that while Milkie was trying to be nice, he appreciated it, but there were alarm bells in his head because he thought that he needed to be careful about how somebody trying to connect with him could be a source of future pain. And he summarizes by stating he would appreciate and would be happy to receive more of that platonic affection from Milkie, but that he may not be as particularly receptive or appreciative as he normally would be. And Milkie says, you're precious and I appreciate you. I analyze a lot and I'm really happy to know that you understand your emotions and how to process them. So Milkie writes that they naively wanted to support him, especially because Toaster was already a friend of their friend, and that they understand the struggles of trying to form genuine connections with people, so they were empathizing with him. And so Milkie reached out to Toaster and let some of their thoughts out, writing that they haven't been hanging out and it makes Milkie feels bad. Toaster keeps complaining that nobody reaches out to them, but Milkie has been actively bending over backwards, even though they do have a tight schedule, to try to go and hang out with Toaster and play games with them, but they just do not feel good about that. And they just want to make sure Toaster wants to be friends. And so Toaster says, oh, at least I don't think I've ever said no to playing with you. A lot of times it happens, things falls through the cracks, even when I am the one initiating and they drop the ball on me. And stating that he recognizes that Milkie pours more into the friendship and is aware of that, and states that Milkie said, because you wanted to do it for yourself without expectation, and I took your word for that. And he says that currently he's dealing with situations in his life right now, and that he ends up spending more time with people that come to me and grab my attention. There's not a lot of space in my brain to think about who do I need to catch up with because there's just so much going on. And I fall behind in a lot of convos that way. And it leaves him with a few people who decide to reach out to him on their own. And he realizes that it's a pretty small percentage of people that he knows, and he thinks it's because people are scared of him. And he's worried about connections because Redacted cut ties with him and they're not friends. And he says that he was in shock, and he's been learning about other friends he's become distant with and learned they've been quietly, intentionally distancing from him because of things they've heard other people say. And he adds that an important thing to understand about loneliness and isolation is that it's not a measurement of how many people are around them. He talks about that he talks with many people every day. How many am I actually connecting with? How many do I actually really see? Maybe it's like one person a week and not always the same person. So Milkie responds and says that the stuff they said weren't validated and downplayed by Toaster. And so Milkie says, the few times you actually do say yes to playing with me, I worry that you don't even show up, because there's been times where you will cancel on me to prioritize other people and it doesn't feel good. And things change, and it's important to communicate when thoughts and feelings change, and stating maybe it was okay at first, but it isn't now. And that Toaster has changed the way they've treated them. And that the whole statement, oh, you're okay with it in the beginning, Milkie says it was because we actually played and chatted and hung out, and now they don't. And now Toaster has treated them even differently, like even more differently. And Milkie adds, when you say, so I end up spending more time with people that come to me and grab my attention, that hurt because it's saying that me talking to you isn't as worthwhile as when others talk to you. Like, it's okay to ignore me or deprioritize me. I understand that people are leaving your life and that can be really hard to deal with, but like, wouldn't you want to treat the people in your life better so they don't leave too? And Milkie adds that Frog has a tendency to invalidate the thoughts and feelings of those expressing a different opinion. In this situation, as so many others, he complained about feeling like he didn't matter to anybody and that he was being used. Milkie adds there was a VTuber show in which he and a mutual friend were both on the show, and he felt the people invited to the show weren't actually his friends, and it unfairly balanced the show in his mutual's favor. He expressed that people never reach out to him and how they will talk to him on the show but not privately. So they talk a little bit about the show here, and Evil Toaster's sentiment is, oh, they were willing to go on this show but they weren't willing to reach out to me. And he says, does the if they want to they will perception apply to me for you? Homie, if you are keen enough to recognize if they wanted to they would, then why can't you apply that to literally everybody else you keep trying to force yourself onto? So Milkie adds, he would constantly tell me about how he had difficulties connecting to others, while all the while expressing that his own distance stemmed from a lack of feeling cared for and loved by others. If someone did care for him, it would cause him to grow distance since it confused him. And here Milkie is saying that they care about Toaster, and Toaster's like, why though? Why though? And Milkie's like, why do I care about you, or why do you ask those things? And Milkie adds, I feel like the problem is you're not used to people caring about you. And Milkie adds, while struggling to accept platonic, and I do stress purely platonic friendship, he would constantly complain about the lack of love and affection in his life and how lonely he was, while often making inappropriate comments. And this conversation, Milkie's like, what's on your mind? And Evil Toaster's like, girls. But it's misspelled, so Goils, goals? And then Milkie's like, goals or girls? And Toaster clarifies, girls, I think I'm lonely. And then Milkie adds he would express his desires to be affectionate with me that I would deflect or ignore. Where Toaster writes, you're exhausted, come nap with me. Milkie is just ignoring that, saying, I have a small headache. And then Milkie's like, I miss you. And Toaster's like, I miss you too, but I gotta get out of bed because you won't get into it. Toaster adds, I want you to lay down with me and I can play with your pretty hair. Toaster says, would you come cuddle and make out with me before bed? I gotta release the Oxycontin. Oh my God. So anyways, Milkie says, is this the right drug? Screenshot of the fucking Google search for it. I'm like half aware, so I'm gonna pass out. Good night, cutie. And Toaster says it's a hormone. And Milkie says, you don't have to answer, but if you don't want to, but it seems like you crave love and affectionate intimacy in your life. What do you feel like you're doing, or what's different about you to these other people that allows them to have it but keeps you from having it? And Toaster says literally no clue other than being in the right place at the right time. So Milkie adds, he would constantly express his perception that of where he would continually put himself in situations where he would be experiencing negative emotions just to feel the comfort of it, and wouldn't try to change the situations he would end up in, even if they were hurting others. Like showing here a song, he links a song called This Devastation from Metal Hell, and talks about how awful feelings and situations are familiar and frequent, that it seems comforting. And then Milkie is asking if he wants to rewatch something with them, and Evil Toaster says maybe. It may be weird because I literally just started rewatching it with the woman who closed me off from romance a few days ago, which caused my current spiral of pain and agony. Milkie adds that he would often discuss his desire for women and his lack of an outlet for expressing his longing and affection. And he writes in DMs, I wonder how much of the pain is specifically not having Redacted around to be my comfort and outlet of affection, and how much of the pain is just not having any outlet at all. And he would make mildly suggestive comments about wanting more with Milkie. And he was like, wow, I'll be a great partner in a relationship. Milkie writes, after I made a comment about how I appreciate his friendship, he made a suggestive comment insinuating he would be open to almost anything with me, which at the time I thought meant to be taken in a purely platonic way. However, through the conversation about me and screenshots regarding me and the rest of the doc, I have learned this was not his intention. So Milkie says, Toaster says what? Milkie has parentheses, it's not that you're cute, you are, but it's not it, end quote, I decided something. Evil Toaster, fish emoji. Milkie says, I decided I love you. You mean a lot to me and platonically, you're so fucking special and cool, and I adore you. You're fun and capable and smart, and I appreciate so many aspects of you. You make me happy to be around you, and I feel extremely comfortable around you. You're a wonderful person. I'm happy to have you in my life. I love you, man. I would often reiterate that affection I showed him was purely platonic and could not be misconstrued in the slightest way. I would say, though, personally for me, I know that Milkie says here, also don't misconstrue my words. I'm not trying to say that Milkie is leading evil toaster on, because Milkie over and over again has emphasized platonically, right? I personally don't talk to my friends in that way. Maybe it's because I am more closed off of a person, like personally and affection wise. If my friends talk to me like that, no matter your gender, I probably would read a little bit into it. But again, this is not Milkie's fault. Evil toaster has an insane history, as we've seen in this document, of somebody will give an inch and they will take a mile and run with it. And Toaster says, sorry, I was getting ready for bed. I'm grateful you feel that way, and I'll do my best to handle how you feel with care and not hurt you. You've been a refreshing experience to me, and I appreciate many aspects of you as well. I too feel very comfortable with you and would probably be down for almost anything with you. Oh, no. I think at the current moment, my attention is being pulled in many directions, so I don't know if I can give you the same focus as you may deserve, but I'm sure you're very understanding of that. I don't like this wording. I'd probably be down with almost anything for you. I read that as an innuendo, personally. What do you mean down for anything? You give an inch, he will take a mile and then some. Milkie writes, his affections and attitude towards me would shift between being warm and affectionate and making mildly inappropriate remarks to being cold, analytical, and sometimes downright mean. While this screenshot is not inherently concerning, this was one of my most traumatic interactions with Frog. He was well versed in tech support and would often help his friends with their routing systems and other tech things. I reached out to him to help me, and he was horribly condescending. We've gone to a VC, and he had me share my screen and explain to him what was wrong with my OBS. I'm not tech savvy, and while I struggled to find the words for what was wrong, every time he would express what it could be, like compression for example, he would have me Google compression and actively read the definition aloud for him, and then he would ask me if that was what I meant. And if it was, he would then have me try to Google how to fix it, even though I already elaborated I had. That is gross. That is disgusting. I do streaming advice content. I teach people how to set up their streams, how to set up their OBSs. You don't need to be condescending about it. Look, somebody reaches out to you for tech support. If Milkie reached out to you for tech support, Milkie was at a point with their OBS that they couldn't figure it out on their own. They needed your help. Clearly, they already acknowledge you as knowing more. You don't need to go and be all gross and weird and condescending and belittle them for their lack of knowledge in OBS. OBS is a weird and convoluted program. Shit breaks on it all the time. It breaks on me to this day. It happens, bro. When I do my one-on-one coaching calls with people, when I help them set up their OBS, if that's what they wanted, right? Can you look up what a source is? I just tell them like, oh, okay, can you go to settings? Let's look under your video bitrate, in case you didn't know, like the higher the bitrate, the better quality your stream would be. And you only need to explain things to people when you're teaching them at the level that would be relevant for them to understand. You also don't need to force people to look up extremely technical definitions of things when it's not relevant to Milkie to know that. Tell Milkie how to fix it. Ask Milkie, hey, oh, you're experiencing stuttering in your streams. Oh, okay, it could be two things, either a PC issue or an internet issue. Let's first check your internet. How's your internet speed? This, that, and the third. Okay, well, we've evaluated it's probably not your internet. Let's look at your PC. Did you update any drivers recently? Did you do this? You don't have to be condescending about it. Milkie adds, so we clicked through the guides I had already read, and he had me read them out loud while questioning me in a berating and belittling way. I expressed to him I wasn't aware of how to fix it. No shit, because Milkie wouldn't have gone to you if they knew, and that this method of me reading aloud what I had already read wasn't helping. He was incredibly condescending and was demeaning to me. He eventually helped me figure out how to adjust the numbers in OBS when he was telling me how easy it was and how I should be able to figure it out. Throughout all of this, he was just so horrible to me. I am so sorry, Milkie. Dude, he sounds so gross. Oh my god, just read these messages, bro. Milkie's like, I couldn't figure out the filters in OBS, but I'm having a blast in Apex. Toaster's like, gain and compressor. Milkie's like, yeah, but I know how to add them, but I don't know what to adjust them to. Putting them in is fine, but I'm not sure what to put the numbers as. Toaster's like, well, you know what the end goal is, right? And Milkie's like, TBH, I'm not sure, so people aren't too soft or loud. Toaster's like, yes, to make quieter voices louder and louder voices quieter. Are you 5, bro? Milkie just said that. Milkie's like, well, yeah, but I don't know how to move the numbers so they reach that. Toaster's like, compression. What do you normally do when you're at this point with figuring something out you don't understand yet? Milkie says, I tried Googling and it didn't make sense, so either way, I'll never know this mystery in life or ask somebody else. Would you mind helping with filters when you get a moment? If somebody comes to you for help and you don't want to help them, just politely decline. Milkie is asking you for help for their OBS. If you don't want to help them, just be like, oh, I hope you can figure that out. I'm too busy right now to help, but here's a link to a page that might be helpful for you. You don't have to be weirdly passive aggressive like this and condescending. So Milkie adds, I want to elaborate to that something has come to my attention. I have never and would never take a romantic or sexual special interest in Frog. I'm very affectionate to everybody, and terms of endearment are not unusual for me. The affection I express is the same I express to everybody, and the messages I have sent using positive terms are the same terms I use for everyone, and that it could never be taken as anything but yawn, since it was well known to Toaster that I communicated to everybody this way unilaterally. Through our entire history, I've been nothing but purely platonic and tried to act in the most sincere way towards them. All I wanted was a genuine friendship where I could be supportive and kind with nothing more. Our shower call was a regular occurrence between myself and my friends. I have a large shower where part of it will always be dry, so it's normal for me to be on call while showering and just be silly with how hard it is to hear and laugh about the echo. No cams were on, there was never anything lewd or sexual on my part. All suggestive comments at the time were I took as something playful with somebody who didn't know how to properly communicate, and I thought it was him trying to open up. It's appalling to me to see how he misconstrued our dynamic to others and how he suggested the possibilities of more with me. While treating me so coldly and horribly, he alluded to such a different dynamic. In hindsight, it's such a shame it took me so long to distance myself from him and that I allowed him to treat me this way for as long as he did. In my last year of VTubing, I'm come to respect myself a lot more, and I would never let this happen again. And I hope through this doc, nobody else would be put through my experience. I hope they can love themselves enough to know their worth and not be treated this way while trying to build a one-sided friendship while being sexualized, used for inflating egos, and demeaned. While these experiences are my own, I know many friends who have similar and grossly uncanny experiences with Toaster who weren't comfortable coming forward due to his influence. Because again, Toaster has friends in high places. Starting as note, I do want to say that Milkie tried her absolute hardest to be a good friend to Toaster. I believe she went above and beyond to make him feel cared for. I absolutely agree to this too. There were a lot of people that tried to be friends with Toaster, and good ones, but it doesn't stop him from making tweets like these. So you have to ask yourself, what really is he searching for? Is it platonic intimacy? Is it to be one of the girls? Or is it something more than that? So example of tweets, being desperate and wanting friends, the same tweet about wanting to be one of the girlies. And Toaster has another tweet stating, one time I actually checked and no joke, less than 5% of VTubers in my friends list have online enabled. The status means nothing to me anymore. Crazy thing is I still don't get DM'd ever, even with a green light, and putting please DM me in my status, so it doubly means nothing. So Kaisa's note. Oh, so that was the other creator we saw earlier by the name of Kaisa. So Kaisa adds, hi, I'm Kaisa, otherwise known as Red Song 01. To most, I was an active Apex VTuber. To others, I was the villain that sided with evil Toaster's abuser. In experience he continued to share, which at this point has been proven several times to be false and a mischaracterization of events and my persona. And they're sharing their thoughts to validate the consistency of his action. And they write TLDR, because I did not drop somebody he fell out with, Toaster branded me as somebody who sides with abusers or sympathizes with abusers. All of this gave Kaisa a genuine anxiety about venturing into new VTuber spaces because they knew Toaster was talking about them and they were worried about being ostracized due to Toaster's high standing. And Kaisa adds to conclude, Toaster hasn't been the most truthful, especially if it's for his own gains. And Kaisa encourages us to listen to what those affected have to say and believe their feelings of anxiety and pressure to be true. And here Toaster says, I'm feeling conflicted. You were playing with redacted. Kaisa's like, why does that conflict with tomorrow? And Toaster's like, I don't know if I'll be able to get that off my mind. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with playing with you tomorrow because I explained what went down with redacted and I, right, in full detail. And Kaisa's like, sort of, I mean, you mentioned emotional manipulation or something, but I don't know the whole deets. Just you and redacted have cut ties. Like redacted was being really strong-headed. Toaster's like abusive, like emotionally and verbally towards us both. And Toaster was like, I don't know how seriously he took me. And Kaisa was like, yeah, from my understanding, you guys just had a falling out with some key differences that escalated to the worst possible way. I take it seriously and I may not know the full extent of it, but your feelings are valid. But before, when you told me you cut ties with redacted, I didn't realize you were asking me to do the same. So I'm kind of processing what to do with it all. But I don't like taking sides because I don't know if this is something I can take sides on, you know, since I wasn't involved in any of this. And then they agreed to talk about it. So Toaster adds, to give you the full context what this is affecting, he says that he did not have very many friends, especially no female friends, women friends, because his previous relationship did not allow him to do so, and he had to rebuild his perception of himself. So once he became a VTuber, the first 3 friends that he made were Kaisa, Redacted, and Nia, and they were the foundation of his new perception of friendship and socialization. And basically he says, I view you as an important friend, and I would expect you to cut that person off. He says it in a very, very long-winded way, but that's the way that I read this as. So he adds, when I first told you about it, it seemed nothing actually came of it, and you and Redacted continue to relate this issue now where I'm questioning why. Then when I tried to explain this discomfort again, you tell me that when I first told you, you didn't consider it as serious as it was for me, which makes me question how seriously I'm being perceived in the first place when I tell somebody I was being abused. And he just feels that Kaisa is prioritizing his alleged abuser, and he feels like Kaisa stood on the wrong side. And then Kaisa follows follows up with stating how they do not remember Toaster going in depth to how Redacted abused them. And Kaisa feels like there were no past examples and that Toaster viewed their values as different, and an example of Redacted pressuring Toaster to transition. But Kaisa thinks that to them personally, the act of pressuring somebody to transition isn't considered abuse. It's conflict, but not abuse. And Kaisa's like, why are you trying to drag me into this? Because I was never involved with any of this. I didn't see any of the fights. And they acknowledge that it must have been hurtful and traumatic to Toaster, but that they have no idea why they're dragged into it. And Kaisa adds, the only indication that I have of her being abusive is just your word of mouth. And Kaisa adds, I need you to understand this next statement. The level of trust I have in you, I have in other people. So I can't just cut ties with somebody on one word alone, even if I'm friends with said person. Because again, I am friends with the both of you. And those friendships are based and built up over separate experiences. To cut someone off based on what somebody else said would be disrespectful to my own thoughts, feelings, and personal experiences. And Kaisa adds, I'm just going to tell you right now, telling somebody to drop a person based on zero receipts, it's outrageous and even borderline manipulative. And I mean, I have my own thoughts on this, right? Like with my friends, if they were to come to me and tell me that somebody was abusive and to cut them off, I probably would, but to not blame the victim. But if it was somebody that I also was friends with, I would like to see some sort of proof if I knew both parties separately and then they dated. You know what I mean? Even though I do want to trust friend A in terms of them not lying, because I am also friends with friend B genuinely, I would also supposedly have enough trust in friend B to be like, wait, but I trust that you wouldn't be the type of person to do this. So I just need to find all the facts and arrive at my own conclusion. And I don't think that was wrong of Kaisa to do. And Kaisa decides to not be friends with Toaster anymore due to how he treated her, because they were ghosting Kaisa. And Kaisa adds this, and Serena also highlights that this line that Kaisa adds is important. No one, who matters at least, treats you differently based on your, quote, presented male gender, end quote. They act different because you refuse to respect where everyone's personal boundaries lie. You consistently ignore everyone's opinions and viewpoints if they do not match with your own, and rather than listen to you, prioritize vouching how much yours is right, even if you're in the wrong or just different. You also have this tendency where you think you have everyone figured out and you let your assumptions hold true, when really it's up to the person how they want to act or speak around you or others. You respect everybody until they hurt you or aren't aligned with you, and then all the respect for their views and thoughts go out the window because you let that pain blind you from realizing that people are people with their own thoughts, their own boundaries, their own viewpoints. And just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. Morality is a lot grayer than you make it out to be, and until you realize that sort of behavior is harmful, then I don't see any reason to put up with it. Genuinely, I'm sorry. So Anon 2's example, which is another instance of evil Toaster pushing boundaries. So Serena adds, Anon 2 was part of a friend group which included Toaster and a friend, except they came into a disagreement with each other and were not on speaking terms. At this time, Anon 2 didn't feel the need to take sides. Toaster knew that they were still in contact with each other and knew that the friend would visit Anon 2's streams and try to control that. And Toaster says, didn't you tell her not to come? Anon 2 says, I tried not to shout her out, gonna talk to her again. Toaster says, but you told her not to come, right? Like, what exactly did you say? Anon 2 says, try to keep it civil, but I guess her sub thing happened. And Toaster says, what? No, what did you tell her before stream? Anon 2 says, to keep it civil and give some space, gonna talk to her again about not coming when you're here. Sorry, Toasty. Toaster says, what? You told me you told her not to come. This, did you just not? Anon 2 says, yeah, I'm gonna talk to her if it was communicated properly though. Worried I'm bad at the communication part. What did you say exactly to her? Dude, Toaster sounds like my narcissistic ex, who is always trying to like police the way I interacted with men. But Toaster is just doing this to other people when they interact with people he doesn't like. That's weird, bro. Look, man, I'm just saying, there's people in the content creation space I do not like. I've been content creating for 5 years. There's bound to be people that I end up not liking and beefing with. Whether my friends talk to them or not, if they're also friends with them, that's on them. It is what it is, bro. Unless that person is genuinely a bad person, then I would be like, hey, just to let you know, they have this track record, do with this info what you will. But I'm not gonna like police my friends and be like, hey, you can't do this or talk to this because whatever. That's weird behavior. Toaster says, did you say the words, quote, do not come into stream, end quote. Anon 2 says, I told the same thing. Yeah, to respect each other and be civil. Toaster says, but you told her not to show up at all, right? And Anon 2 says, I did say just to avoid the stream when you're in. Toaster says, so then she just completely disrespected you. Toaster says, you did your part. I mean, I guess you could have banned her, but I wasn't expecting you to do that or anything. Should have been as easy as asking and her respecting the boundary. Ooh, talk about boundaries, bro. Where's yours? Toaster says, if she's not participating and will be timed out in chat for the duration of the stream, then I can make it happen. I should state that even that is a compromise. And if redacted in my event, Toaster says, then I don't know if I will be capable of participating in a way where I'll be able to celebrate properly, to risk showing up and it going south like in the last collab. And so they're talking about a streamed event where Toaster says, I would feel very awkward to know that Redacted got to play with you on stream for your celebration and I had to be put away to play. Anon's like, you're not being put away. You were invited, but you refused. Toaster says, I want to celebrate. And Redacted says, okay, you guys will be in different time slots if it happens. Toaster says, are you okay with what she did and how she treated me? And Redacted says, that is between you guys. Please stop treating my birthday event like a turf war. I'm already really accommodating even more to you. That is so uncomfortable. It's somebody's birthday event. If you have beef with somebody else, just suck it up, keep it to yourself, bro, and do whatever you gotta do to make this birthday person happy, and then figure out your own problems with the other person and don't drag irrelevant parties into your situations. This is high school shit. Where Sarah adds, there's more backstory to Anon 2's experience with Evil Toaster, and it took almost 2 years of distancing and healing. They honestly were surprised to know that they weren't the only one to have these types of combos with him, mostly due to the fact that they were terrified of what Evil Toaster's connections could do, due to Anon 2 being a smaller VTuber. Evil Toaster writes, well, I'll listen along. Redacted, you're autistic as heck. Redacted says, no. So it's another experience of Toaster pushing an autism diagnosis. So Anon 3 has an experience, and Sienna adds, unfortunately, this person was unable to get photo evidence, but they do say. And Anon 3 says, I was weirded out by him. If we can keep this Anon, this is my side of the story, and I believe probably many felt this way. I felt guilt-tripped into playing and hanging out with them, especially when they confronted me for not including them in a collab and such. OP adds, this is not far-fetched considering everything else in this doc, where Toaster continuously pushes people, guilt-trips them, and blames them for not accommodating him. So now we have Sheffy's experience. Sheffy hosted a collab, and one of the people invited was Evil Toaster. Toaster started the collab by putting off one of the people there, as evident below. So Anon says the vibes were off. I'm not sure if I was misinterpreting it. Sheffy was like, they def were. He was basically trying to humiliate me, so I thought I'd tell you what happened so you can avoid him. I stopped talking that last half because I was crying. Redacted says, really, Ash, I'm so sorry, that's so shitty. Sheffy says, it's okay. Redacted said, yeah, I kind of felt weird because he asked for a fun fact. I said I was allergic to fruit. He said that wasn't very fun, and I'm like, okay. I wasn't sure what to say or how to interact. So here, Sheffy talks about their experience.
Sent me this thing, right? And it said short people are more likely to have like traits.
Huh?
And he said that was you.
I got
it.
Me?
What does that mean?
I don't know. He just sent it to me randomly. He's like, this is Kelly.
What?
At first I thought he was referencing himself.
I'm not psychotic.
What? Oh, why would he say that? And then why would you share that? Hello?
He just said you're absolutely a psychopath.
Huh?
I'm not.
Are you good? What's so funny?
So for context, it's added, Sheffy made a joke about short people being psychotic, especially because somebody sent her a news broadcast with a study saying so, and it was directed towards Kelly, her friend. This is a joke that's common between the two, but also common for both of their communities. Even Kelly's mod, Jeff, comments on Kelly's height and says she's psychotic, so it's obviously accepted by both Kelly and her community. It's clear that Sheffy meant no disrespect, and no disrespect was taken except for by Toaster. Whether or not the joke was not Toaster's cup of tea, it's the fact that he continues to press Sheffy after the joke's already passed. This is live with multiple people streaming. The person the joke is addressed to is laughing, and while Toaster believes Sheffy is the one laughing, it's actually Kelly. The person the joke involves thinks it's funny, and nobody else seems to have a problem, but even if Toaster felt the need to police Sheffy's humor, he could have done so after the collab in private. Instead, he humiliated her in front of multiple people. And so Sheffy was confused as to everything going on because they didn't realize Toaster was upset before. Cerner adds, mental illness jokes are abound in the VTubing community, which Toaster has commented on before. He adds, especially since a lot of my opinions would easily be seen as an attack on other people in the scene, like the rampant ableism in VTuber humor. And CC says, what type of humor? Like, what is common to say? Toaster says things like making jokes about PTSD, OCD. I see people making schizo jokes, or jokes about hearing voices. Triggered humor, obviously, is very common in the scene and kind of just observed as degen humor. Sienna adds, it's interesting that he doesn't want to bring this up publicly because he knows it can be seen as an attack to the good portion of the VTubing community, but has no problem publicly humiliating a smaller streamer live. And despite this, Sheffy apologized immediately during the collab. So these are the apologies. And Toaster says, nobody likes mental health related jokes. I at you in chat earlier about the PTSD jokes too. Sheffy says, sorry, I didn't fully understand it at first and it's my bad. I'm used to different humor with others, but I'm really sorry. And Toaster says, you should really be concerned about those others. And Toaster didn't accept the apology. Cerner adds that it says a lot about Sheffy to apologize to somebody about a joke that wasn't directed at them with no ill intent. It's funny that he brings up her friend group, which they share mutual friends with the same humor, but those friends are in a higher position of power due to larger followings. So that's probably why Toaster never said anything about them making similar jokes the way Sheffy did. I was also say too, I mean, I personally, in terms of like mental illness jokes, I think there's nothing wrong with like joking about stuff if you also have it and if the jokes are in a way not harmful to people or about people, you know what I mean? Like, don't joke about other people's PTSD. Like, I don't joke about other people's ADHD, but I myself have ADHD, so I make jokes about myself. So here's Sheffy stating that they can't hold back their tears and they feel awful. They want to leave, but they're hosts and they're just trying to finish. Where it's added that Sheffy wanted to leave her own collab and was crying on stream and suffered from self-doubt. So conclusion. Cerner writes that in conclusion that that they have withheld a lot of information about things Toaster has personally done to them so that they could keep this document relevant to how Toaster disrespects women's boundaries within the space, controls people, and uses his status within the community to continuously get away with things. Cerner adds, I held on to this for about 2 years now, but I realized that if Toaster can ignore public outrage, he will always ignore private outrage. The hope for this document is that those reading it who have negative experiences with Toaster that might be too scared finally know at least some people are speaking out about him. To reassure those people that know you aren't overthinking this, he does evade personal boundaries, he is controlling, and he is manipulative. He is creepy towards women, especially those who do not have a platform similar to his own. Above all, this behavior is incredibly recent and is documented up until last month. I hope Toaster can understand that when multiple friends parted ways with you, when groups of people avoid you, it is because you are the problem. Nobody is out here to get you because XYZ said so. You may talk about people and warn others away from them, but no boogeyman is keeping people from talking to you or anything of the sort. It's not because you are perceived as a man, but because you disrespect people's boundaries time and time again until their only option is distance. I don't believe Toaster will apologize. I don't even know if this document will provoke any, in my opinion, necessary repercussions, but I do know that I and many others have spoken their truth and tried our best to get him to realize his mistakes and fix his behavior going forward, or at least console the people who have been doubting themselves with their experiences. I thank everybody who's come forward and helped me create this doc, and I thank people who could not speak out in concern for their safety, but told me personally their stories and helped me get a better picture of what's been going on behind the scenes for these past 3 years. So in the comments, we have Kisa adding, thank you so much, Cece, for putting this together, especially for those that were too afraid to speak up. I would have never spoken up about what he put me through if it wasn't for you. Fariha adds, years ago, he would minority police me to insane standards. I was in a dark place at the time, stuck in an abusive relationship, and if I showed frustration on stream to the extent of, man, where's my team? Nothing vile. He would send me DMs, not asking, hey friend, are you okay? But rather giant essays on how I am a disappointment to the community, how I am letting down people of color, gay folks, and more importantly, making him look bad to his sponsors that he once recommended me to. He's thrown me and several friends of mine under the bus with this sort of behavior, and funnily enough, it's always been minority streamers. There was a PMA police energy about him and his crew, which splits the face of authenticity because God forbid minorities be anything less than perfect and happy all the time. Icy Sylvie adds, I just quietly let my friendship with him fade after he was super stubborn and pushy with me and how he treated other friends. He hurt my feelings often. I still wonder if anything will happen though because he always felt untouchable being friends with such large creators. Shirayuki adds, I at one point tried to collab with them before knowing about what they did to mutual friends behind the scenes. They gave a few reasons to reject me, one of which was that I was nonverbal through some of stream, which is due to a health condition I have no control over. Glad to see people saying what needs to be said. I support each and every one of you, so keep being amazing. So I'm gonna put a trigger warning, life ending. So this is from Aimbach, who writes, trigger warning, I saved somebody from ending their life on stream. I didn't have that big of a platform then, so I asked for a mutual in the Overwatch to signal boost. The police showed up and saved their life. After, Evil Toaster told me what I did was wrong because I was not a trained professional. So Redacted says, that's what I'm confused as to what I could have or should have done differently then. I thought I was saving someone and doing something good. Evil Toaster writes, you should have done nothing other than report the stream. And so Evil Toaster has not made a statement, but he's still been streaming on Twitch. So we have this clip from CVT stating, brother, Evil Toaster is generally weird as hell. And also the VTuber here is Inksy, but see as this is slightly popping off, so I'm gonna make it clear, don't make Inksy part of this nor at her in any way. It was unfortunate enough that Inksy was part of this clip. Do not annoy her or DM her about this. This is about Toaster.
There's developing stories on the internet out there from very credible individuals that I am actually the worst person to be conceived out of the human race because I told Twitch that this would be a good idea. And it turns out it is. It's crazy.
Not very remorseful. Yeah, Starkiller adds, I love how you tried to play the woe is me card and she just got so effing silent. Shit must have been awkward as F. Yeah, I feel bad for Inksy. She's probably just like minding her own business, didn't see the document. Toaster's talking and she's just like, okay, Pikachu face, uh-oh. So then to add, we have another document. So this document is from Audio Sue VT, who writes, I've been asked to produce a document about Evil Toaster. This is for those who found the courage after reading Serena's document and wish to speak up anonymously about their own traumatic experiences. So this document reads, the anonymous victims of Evil Toaster's abuse. To preface, this document is a way for the few victims of Evil Toaster to speak out against the wrong he's done while remaining anonymous. This is to showcase how it's harmful to peer review and diagnose people when you aren't trained and highlight Evil Toaster's situation. So there's no wrong answer currently in self-diagnosing and formal diagnosing. There's a whole discourse, by the way, on the internet about that. And like this doc says, there's pros and cons to both. So Audio adds, for those who don't know me, I keep my head down. I've spent over 7 years when I can working with Crisis Connections, 988 and SPSA. So the following screenshots are concerning and that they do not condone manipulation or unprofessionally diagnosing your friends or forcing your views and beliefs onto others. Audio ads, please understand that Evil Toaster is not a trained professional. They do not have the medical degree. While online autism tests have some accuracy, are a wonderful way to identify traits and get you on the right path to getting diagnosed, they are not a 100% accurate source of diagnoses. I respect the autism community and their support of self-diagnosis, and this is in no way a hit piece against the community, merely identifying one person who is viewed as dangerous. Quickly diving into the self-diagnosis and actual diagnosis situation here. In situations, self-diagnosing can be helpful, right? Let's say you are somebody who doesn't have that much money. Getting a diagnosis is expensive. You don't have that much money in your pocket. Self-diagnosing through these means can be a way to help you out to kind of find answers to your problems. I do not have autism, but I do have ADHD, and I did go through a lot of these quizzes and stuff like that online to pseudo self-diagnose myself with ADHD. I am actually diagnosed. I went through the self-diagnoses to try to figure out because it was tearing a big hole in my life for a very long time and making living pretty difficult. Not staying alive, but doing day-to-day tasks difficult. It was helpful for me, and I didn't want to drop a bunch of money on a diagnosis if I wasn't super sure. But there is the flip side where people say that self-diagnosis is not legitimate. And from a medical standpoint, it is not legitimate because you do not have a medical professional actually diagnosing you with situations. I do think, in my personal opinion, well, my only credibility is the fact that I have a biology degree. I do think self-diagnosing can be helpful if you are seeking non-medical treatments to alleviate issues you have. As in, if you self-diagnose yourself with ADHD, you go online and find other ADHD content creators who are giving you tips and tricks on how they manage their ADHD, like, for instance, body doubling, and you implement that in your own life and you find it more helpful. I think that's chill. But if you self-diagnose and then use your self-diagnoses to then impose it onto other people, that's harmful. If you use your self-diagnoses to then try to self-medicate, that's also harmful. So that is where I personally draw the line on it. But again, I also do think these are for mental disorders. If you start self-diagnosing for physical things, which can be a little trickier as well, because physical ailments also typically involve physical treatments, and that can be dangerous because it goes down another slippery slope of self-medicating for issues that you need medical professionals to actually guide you through proper treatment. So for mental illnesses, I do understand that it can be a way for you to kind of get some sort of alleviation in your life if you don't have access to medical care in your current state. But I definitely do recommend to actually seek medical help when you can to get an actual diagnosis, which can then lead to more clarity in your life as to why things may be more difficult for you when they are not difficult for those around you, which is exactly what I experienced with my ADHD. So going back into this document, pushing boundaries and pressing autism onto others. OP writes, Evil Toaster has a long history of diagnosing and encouraging his friends to take autism tests, going as far as referring to some as his own personal case study. That is weird. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with looking out for your friends, but the frequency Evil Toaster has shown to do this with dozens of friends is a red flag. So this is a conversation between Evil Toaster and Redacted. Evil Toaster is like, I can't sleep because I have things on my mind. And Toaster is like, for the stuff we talked about, you're becoming a case study for me on these kinds of topics. It is weird if you are not a medical professional, even if you are, to do case studies on non-consenting individuals, okay? If you are to do actual case studies, and what a case study is from a medical and psychological perspective, is a study about conditions on only one individual, typically done because the medical condition is so extremely rare. There is generally not more people that you can actually study this medical condition on. An example of a case study is with the case of Phineas Gage. If you guys don't know who Phineas Gage is, he is an American railroad worker, and through his job, trigger warning, this is going to be a little bit graphic, a pole impaled him through his eye, end of graphic description. So because of this injury and the impact it had on his frontal lobe, people then discovered that your prefrontal cortex actually plays a really big part in your personality because his personality changed drastically after his injury. He is a case study due to there being very few circumstances such injury happening to somebody's head and them surviving afterwards. And again, it's an absolute medical study with medical professionals involved. Using your friends is not an official professional way to do case studies, and it is weird because you are observing your friends in a medical way and your friends did not consent to this behavior. And here's a screenshot. Toaster says, you're more autistic than me, Pog. This is not a comparison game. It's not who is more or less autistic. So I just think it's a little bit odd of a statement to make. I've been told by over 10 individuals that at some point in their interactions with Toaster, he has either unwarranted and unprompted shoved an autism test onto them or guided the convo in a way that he suggests they take it. And Google adds, online autism tests are not reliable tools for diagnosing autism spectrum disorder or ASD. I do think these online tests can be helpful in guiding you in the right direction. I, again, am not not autistic, but I have ADHD and I took a whole bunch of those tests to guide me to actually go to a doctor to get a diagnosis. So OP adds self-diagnosis is important because it allows people to receive new information about themselves that may help them mitigate symptoms, validate their experiences, and persuade them to seek medical help. Self-diagnosing and tests give an opportunity to put their foot in the door and explore a deeper level. However, self-diagnosis becomes harmful when an individual never receives professional diagnosis because there are many symptoms that overlap with disorders. Someone who engages in self-diagnosis may start identifying with a disorder that isn't part of their psyche and therefore treat themselves and others differently because of it. This can lead to an incomplete treatment of mental illness and disorders, which in the long term can have serious effects on a person's mental, physical health, lifestyle, and more. I absolutely do agree with that as well. You may think you have it, but it may actually be another thing. I mean, tossing in a personal anecdote, I thought I had ADHD, took a whole bunch of tests. I got slapped with an anxiety diagnosis along with that. I was like, dude, that was not what I was expecting. Things can present in like different ways. You can present with multiple disorders that looks different on you than it will for others, and vice versa. This is weird. So here, Redacted took a test. It gave them some results that explain a lot in their life, and they will talk to their therapist. Toaster says, I wouldn't necessarily trust a neurotypical with diagnosing you since they fundamentally cannot understand what being autistic is like. But that is just my opinion. The opinion of almost everybody I know in the autistic community. We are big advocates for self-diagnoses. He's out here discouraging somebody from seeking an actual diagnosis from a medical professional. There are cases where doctors do not correctly diagnose people, where somebody is autistic, they do not get diagnosed with autism. A lot of it happens actually to women because autism and mental disorders in general present differently in women than men. And with most of the studies that we have currently for mental disorders, especially studies that were done back in the day for the DSM, they were all done on white males. And mental disorders present differently in women for a lot of different biological and environmental factors. And tying all of that together, it can lead to a lot of people, especially biological women, getting blown off when they genuinely actually do have autism or other mental disorders that they later in life will get diagnosed with. I completely digress. So there are cases where medical professionals will not diagnose you correctly, but that is still not a situation where you should completely avoid going to the doctor because there is a small chance they get you wrong. Audio adds, while they say their opinion, I still find this dangerous to somebody so impressionable and trusting. While there is no research to prove this, it's a repeated and common occurrence with Toaster. So Toaster again is snooping and saying, I am having neurodivergent suspicions. So Evil Toaster is frequently spotted DMing people unrelated to another person's autism or lack thereof. Even when the person being discussed rejects his personal diagnoses, declines his test, or say they aren't comfortable. So here there's a conversation and somebody says, I'm so stupid. I don't know how to end a conversation not awkwardly. And Toaster says, autistic trait spotted. Audio writes, you'll see a common trend that any tiny trait that can be categorized as an autistic trait is reinforced into that person's head by Toaster. The victim in the screenshot confided in me, telling me they didn't ask for this giant monstrosity. They felt stupid receiving it and not understanding it. Upon saying, I don't know how to end the convo, not awkwardly, Toaster instant response was autistic trait spotted. The whole thing with mental disorders, autism, ADHD, and others, they are traits that people have. But the thing about whether you have ADHD or autism is that you have enough of those traits to where you have ADHD or autism, right? There's people in the world with ADHD traits, but they just don't have enough of it to have ADHD. We all get scatterbrained every once in a while, but not everybody who forgets where their keys are once has ADHD. But if you're like me and you have missed, you've missed probably 7 airplane flights, and a bunch of them were international in your life, and you have actually missed like 5 or 6 finals in your college career due to you just forgetting, that may mean that you have ADHD. I am diagnosed. I'm just self-inserting here, but anyways, ADHD wreaked absolute havoc on my life until I got diagnosed. So please see a doctor, get a diagnosis. If you do suspect you have ADHD or autism or something, and you feel like it is affecting your life in a way where you can barely function as a human being. I felt like I couldn't even live or function properly because it was running rampant and my ADHD was like grabbing me by the neck and dragging me along with it. And now that I know that I have it, I'm not medicated, but I have employed active traits and actively done things to try to manage it, and has made my life a lot better. And I'm not medicated because I got my medication and forgot to pick it up, and then I moved. So here, Toaster is again talking about Nia, stating, fun fact, some people chalk up just being introverted itself as neurodivergent, especially in deficient models. Since there are measurable differences in needs for stimulation and accommodations, they get a similar amount of work done in introverts. Toaster is talking about a friend who recently got diagnosed and says, funny enough, she was also ADHD and gender fluid, so the chance was quite high. And Toaster adds, so like basically if somebody is diagnosed with ADHD, it's a solid 50% chance they also test for autism. Some people argue they could be the same thing, and I'm not opposed to that idea entirely. Do you have ADHD? I want to say you mentioned it. You're also trans. trans. So I don't also like the idea that Toaster is linking things related to gender dysphoria and questioning your gender, like being trans, similar to having mental disorders like ADHD. I just don't like how he mentioned, you know, oh, she's also has ADHD and gender fluid. So, oh, and you're also trans. So it seems to me like they're implying, and I just don't like that. Toaster says very, very high overlap between trans people and autism. Fun fact. Maybe there's a statistic out there to prove this linkage, but it seems like Toaster from all of these screenshots is pulling stuff out of his butt. But yeah, I mean, okay, on a complete side note as well, the whole thing about ADHD and autism is ADHD and autism share a lot of similar traits. So it is actually more likely that if somebody does have ADHD or autism, they would actually have the other one as well. So AU ADHD is pretty common. Not common, but it is, if you have autism, it is reasonably common for you to also have ADHD as well. It's just because they do share a lot of traits, but there are traits that then branch off, which is why having a certain selection of traits ADHD and another selection of traits autism. So that's where the divergence is. I myself have also experienced this too, where sometimes I was a little confused and I was like, man, am I autistic? Because a lot of ADHD traits also are traits of people with autism. Saw the doctor said I have ADHD and anxiety, and I was like, cool, that's what they said. So while it is a true statement, there is a linkage between the two. Evil Toaster is using this notion, and I don't know what the number is. 50% is a pretty high number though. But Evil Toaster is taking this information and using it to try to pressure somebody into thinking they have more mental disorders. So, so Audio clears it up. Audio says these numbers are false. Yeah, these are very high numbers. There is a correlation between ADHD and autism. I do not think 50% though. There's some validity to a statement. Autism does have correlation to ADHD and transness, but not causation. While having ADHD and or being trans has an increased chance of being diagnosed with some form of autism, it is not a guarantee. Yeah, I just don't like the way Toaster is saying it, because it sounds like he's implying that because you are trans, you also are autistic. Like the way he's saying it is like, because he's saying it like it's a guarantee. And here another DM, Toaster says, I had a call with Redacted. She's one of us. Redacted says, did she take the test? Or Toaster says, no, but she checks all the boxes. And for context, the person in the screenshot did not request any information about how Evil Toaster viewed them. He elected to label somebody untested and without their consent as autistic. So Anonymous experienced 3. So the entire thing was done on call in Discord. The only proof is the meeting. So Redacted approached Toaster asking for help getting formally tested for autism. And they're talking about being willing to hop on a call to talk. So Toaster has sent them a tweet, says not self-diagnosed, not professionally, but peer-reviewed. It's insane to think that an untrained individual could ever diagnose somebody regardless of any experience they might have personally. The two called, and during the call, Toaster once again said that a professional diagnosis was unnecessary. After recounting the events that happened on the call with me, the individual explained a much more upsetting call, unlike a few others in the same shoes as them. They were not ready for how abrasive Toaster was, nor were they ready for how heavily Toaster would declare his findings to be, you have autism. Closing statement. In the middle of making this, I wouldn't lie, I believed it would be a somewhat simple document. I had read tons of discussing convos between Toaster and a few others, and I'll post them and give an explanation why it's wrong and the victim's views. It wasn't long into the night that I realized the big issue. It involves more than just Toaster and a few anon individuals. If I word this wrong, get any information correct, or don't do my due diligence and start researching as much as I can, I could do more harm than good. I had to make sure everything I've learned had been taught in research in the past and present are as accurate as I can be sure. I've done more research on autism than I did in college and had reached out to a few specialists I befriended along the course of my life. I just didn't want to be some guy posting screenshots. In writing this and going through almost 50 screenshots, I realized I need to center the focus of this document to his toxic and dangerous behaviors and diagnosing those around him with autism. At moments, I felt sick at the manipulative behavior, the way he takes his friends and their relationship circle dynamics and guides them along behind the scenes in one-on-ones for his own benefit. I'm a passionate person, but for this, I have to remain objective and be the voice for those who are too scared to speak up or unable to face the problems. Hindsight is truly 2020, because oftentimes you don't realize the threats and dangers you've been in till you've had time to review them. I hope with this, everybody remains safe. I hope everyone stays informed and trusts in themselves. For those who took the time to read this, I thank you. I hope this document didn't offend you in any way, and most importantly, please continue to support our collective cry for a healthy community. So there are some sources that are linked as well. And if you go on Evil Toaster's Twitter page, there is not a lick, a comment, a mention of all of the controversy going down. Okay, well, I can't find anything else, so well, this was a very, very, very long and hefty video. So that is the conclusion so far about this whole saga with Evil Toaster. Thank you so much to everybody who has spoken up. Big shout outs to Serna for the entire document. I'm very sorry to what happened to them, Evil Toaster, and with Kisa, Milkie, Kaisa, Sheffy. There was somebody called Nia as well that was constantly being mentioned as well in these screenshots, and everybody else that was affected by Evil Toaster who chooses to remain anonymous to protect themselves, which is a very, very reasonable stance to take. And it really sucks that there's somebody like this who is still Twitch ambassador out here, which is a role that is in a way even higher than partner, because Twitch ambassadors essentially serve as the face of Twitch. Truly makes me wonder, like, I wonder maybe if they have some behind the scenes connections to Twitch that allows them to maintain this position with this type of stuff going behind the scenes. Again, as always, please do not send any harassment or bullying towards anybody. And I personally wish that Evil Toaster can take some accountability for his actions and his lack of understanding boundaries and forcing diagnoses on people who never consented to it. So with that being said, when I upload this video, I will link the 2 documents down below in the comment section of this video. So go check out the documents to read it for yourself to get the first-hand experience. I hope to see you in my Twitch streams. I do stream 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST, or to catch you in another video.